president, Hoover has to face something every 4 years that every president has to face. What does he have to face then?
Re-election.
He's got to go through re-election. Now, I will say this about Hoover. I'm still not exactly certain why he even tried to get reelected. There are two things that the American public always thinks about when they're deciding how to vote. They think about, are we at war? And also, what's our economic situation? Now, true, Hoover's not at war, but he has an economy that's an absolute disaster. When Hoover runs for re-election, I have no idea why he would. He's going to go up against someone that's been waiting for an opportunity. Someone who has been a long-time politician, but not necessarily ever had his sights on the presidency until the election in 1932. Hoover's going to run against Franklin Delano Roosevelt, or FDR. Now, I do want to ask, because we've seen this, have we seen another Roosevelt? Who was that other one? Teddy Roosevelt. Now, remember, Teddy Roosevelt was a bit of a lunatic. Theodore Roosevelt he was a hunter. He brought bears back to the White House. He was a little crazy. Franklin Roosevelt is his cousin. He's definitely not nearly as crazy as his cousin. But Franklin Roosevelt is a very accomplished politician. When this election comes about in 32, Hoover is going to lose in a landslide. Now, like I say, I don't even really know why Hoover would want to run again. The writing's on the wall. There is no way he's going to win re-election. To be perfectly honest, the Republicans probably should have sent someone else. There is no way Hoover's going to win. And in 1932, it becomes really obvious. Hoover's going to lose in a landslide election. Now, here's the thing. It's hard to kind of explain how big of a landslide this is. So I want to show you a couple of visuals. What I'm going to show you is going to be the election map from 1928 when Hoover won, and also the election map from 1932 when he lost in the landslide. Now, there are going to be some things that I want to point out here. So my advice is, let's just kind of put down a few bullet points as far as kind of what you see, what you notice, just what stands out. So first one, I want to show you the election from 1928. Here's where Hoover won. Now, red states are Republican states, blue states are Democrat states. Hoover wins 444 electoral votes to 87. Did he do pretty well?
Yeah.
Yes, he did. Now, here's the thing. I want you to write down just one bullet point, just one thing that you see, that you notice, that just kind of stands out. What do you see about this map? Take just a second, just write down. Just what do you see, what do you notice? Now, I'll go ahead and ask you guys, what is it about this map that you just kind of notice? What sticks out? What do you see? Yes, Sam?
Most of Hoover's votes, not first states, votes came from the South.
Absolutely. I'm so glad you pointed that out. These southern states and just a small number of New England states are the only ones that vote for Smith. Now, I want to go all the way back to Reconstruction. Why are these southern states voting Democrat when almost the entire rest of the country is voting Republican?
Because I had a massive grudge against them because they basically imprisoned them in the United States.
What do you mean?
Just all the laws that were put in place to basically suppress them. The South.
Who? Who's them?
Like the person who did it?
No. You said them? What do you mean when you say them,
Like
Liam?
the Southerners, the North really punished them.
Okay. So part of Reconstruction. Now you're on the right track, absolutely. Because, and I gotta ask, gosh, the other class fell on their face here. Who freed the slaves?
Lincoln.
Lincoln. What political party was he a member of?
Republicans.
He's a Republican. The South votes Democrat for 100 years after Lincoln frees the slaves. They don't care who's running. As long as you have a D next to your name, they're voting for you. So in 28, almost the whole country votes Republican. The South still votes Democrat. Now let's talk about 4 years later. This is the 1932 election. Tell me what you see.
That's rough, man. Yikes.
Ouch. Now let's sort of take a look here. In 1932, Roosevelt wins 472 electoral votes to Hoover's 59.
Wow.
This is a landslide right here. We have not seen an election map like this since the 1980s.
Reagan.
Roughly 40 years. This just doesn't really happen anymore. Now, in this time, we have Hoover winning a handful of states. Poor Hoover. He wins 6 states. Yikes. Now, there's a real clear reason behind this. Hoover said throughout his presidency, I can't do anything about the economy. I don't have that power. Franklin Roosevelt basically says the opposite. Hoover said, I can't do anything. Roosevelt said, there's nothing that I can't do. I'm going to do everything to fix the economy. Within his first 100 days in office, Franklin Roosevelt says, I'm going to begin the process of fixing the problems of the Great Depression. I'm going to expand the power of government farther than any other president in history, well beyond what previous presidents did. And he said, I will personally get involved in fixing this economy. I promise the American people, I'm going to give you a new deal. Now, he uses his language here pretty specifically. Because again, I want to go back to Teddy Roosevelt. He promised the American people a deal too. He said, I promise you fairness. I'm going to be certain those monopolies, the Carnegies, the Rockefellers, are held accountable. I promise you this other deal. Do you remember? What did Teddy Roosevelt promise the American people? I'll give you a hint.
Square deal.
The square deal. I promise you fairness. His cousin says, I'm going to give you a new deal. I'm going to pass dozens and dozens and dozens of government programs with the entire intent of pulling us out of the Great Depression. Now, he starts this process in his first 100 days in office. He really sets up kind of a tradition that exists right now. Right now, the first 100 days of a presidency is kind of like a benchmark. It shows what they deem to be kind of most important. What they do in those first 100 days are key because it's their moment to do what they want to. And there's a real reason why. In the first 100 days, you're in what's called the honeymoon period. Now, I have to explain this in such a way. So guys, life lessons today. And girls, I'm sorry, I'm going to be giving up secrets, okay? Guys, here's the thing. This will happen to you. Sometime with your girlfriend or your wife, I promise, you're going to mess something up. And you're probably not going to know what you did. But here's what will happen. You'll walk in the door and you'll say, hello, dear. And she will stare back at you with daggers in her eyes. And you're probably going to do this because, fellas, I will tell you, this is a mistake from my own playbook. I'm trying to warn you, but you're going to do this. You're going to do something that all guys do, so girls, get ready for this.
Forget
She's
that.
gonna look at you with daggers and you're gonna say, "What's wrong?" Don't do that.
I don't do that.
But you will. Nadav, remember this moment, okay? It's going to happen. And here's what she's going to say. Now, girls, maybe you can explain this to me because I still don't know. They're going to say to you, "You should know what you did wrong."
You forget your anniversary, but I don't.
Oddly enough, I've never forgotten our anniversary
Okay.
because I just remember dates for a living. So, if I can remember when D-Day is, I better be able to remember my anniversary. But here's the deal. Guys, there's hope for you, okay? The best part about a relationship is the beginning. You know why?
No.
You haven't messed anything up yet. But you will. So, just like presidents, the first 100 days are important. They're their most popular because they haven't messed anything up yet. But they will. FDR is going to be the one who really pushes this idea forward. The first 100 days are integral because that's when you're at your most popular. You just won the presidency. You've just taken power. It's time to enact what you said you would do. FDR says, "I'm going to use the power of government to try to pull us out of the Great Depression." Hoover said there was nothing he could do. FDR says there's nothing I can't do. I'm going to spend us out of the Great Depression. I think I heard someone say, does that sound a little weird?
She's gonna print more money.
No, that would be strange.
Because inflation.
I'm going to spend us out of the Great Depression. It sounds like some of you have issues with this too. So I need to ask. There are two ways that the federal government can bring money in, at least two large ways. The first one is what? How does the government bring money in? Yes, Sam?
To bring money in for themselves?
Yep.
Taxes.
Taxes. The biggest majority of government income is through taxes. So FDR, being the shrewd politician he is, you think he's going to tell the American people, "I'm going to raise your taxes to astronomical levels during the Great Depression"?
No.
Bad idea. So we got to go route number 2. Do you know what's the second big way the government brings money in?
Germany.
You're on the right track.
Oh.
Yes. But yes, I
Selling items.
that would be good.
Foreign policy.
They don't want to buy. You borrow the money.
Oh no.
Borrow, and I promise I will pay you back. Now again, can you go and tell the American people, "Yeah, we've got money problems, so I'm just going to borrow a ton and we'll worry about it later"?
No. Yeah.
Is it better than going to raise your taxes?
Yes.
We're going to borrow a ton of cash to spend on government programs. Now, FDR's idea here is we have huge unemployment numbers. Upwards of 25% of the population is out of work. I'm going to use government projects to put people to work. We're going to spend huge amounts of money to employ people. Now, let me kind of ask this. Does that at least solve some of the unemployment problems? Giving people jobs, government-funded jobs?
Yes.
Sure. So let's think through a little bit before we go farther. Who works for the government? Who is someone who is paid by the government? I'll give you a hint.
The president.
Oh, teachers?
Teachers are government employees. So let's hire a ton of teachers.
What about private
You
schools?
work for the government?
I have a question.
Yes, I work for the. Lux, remind me, you were the one that thought you were at a private school, is that correct? Okay, public school, funded by the government.
What about
That's how I
private
get paid.
Private schools aren't funded by the government, right? Those
They
private
are
schools.
somewhat, but it gets real complicated in there. Most of their money is private. So who else works for the government then?
Um,
Well, yes, Sam.
The president.
President does, but there's only one of him. You want to hire a bunch of presidents?
Congressman.
That would be
Construction people.
Sure, we've got people who are working construction jobs
Congress people.
for the government. Congress, you're right, but can you hire a bunch of congressmen and women?
Oh, wait,
Yes.
no,